Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Jumping right in here into this game of Hearts Online, and I'm going to be ranting about various different topics that have been on my mind lately. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is friends who abandon you for no given reason and how to move on from that. Yeah, I'm not the only one. I know that many of us have had, in some cases, almost even lifelong friends that have been with us, that have considered us a brother or a sister, and they just decided to move on for no given reason. I've had a couple of really close friends like that I went to school with. One who I know just decided that I was no longer cool enough to hang out with. And the next, who was much, much closer than anybody else I'd known. And yeah, he considered me a brother. I considered him a brother. And I was even closer to him than I was any of my other siblings. But in the last couple of years, for whatever reason, he just has not wanted to contact me anymore. And and that's fine. That's his choice. It made me sad for quite a long time. But because of a lot of good recent things that have happened to me, I no longer feel sad like I once did. But from time to time, I still feel quite bad about it, but I'm able to shut it out much easier these days. Yeah, so I'm just going to say straight up, I think it is extremely selfish for anybody to go out of their way to say, oh yeah, you're my brother, you're my sister, etc. And then out of the blue, just not contact them anymore. I just think that is just so awful. And if you're someone that's done that to somebody else, you really need to have a look in the mirror and actually sit down and just think about how selfish an act that actually is. Whether you intended to do it or not, you still did it. And, I just don't think that you should be going out of your way to say such things about people if you have any idea that you might stay out of contact with them. Now, I know things happen in life. I know people get jobs, people move house, things like that. And that's fine. That's fine if you can't contact somebody as often as you'd like to. I mean, I have many friends like that myself that I wish I could hear from more. But the thing is that whenever I reach out to them and I send them a message or a text, I almost always get a response back. And they're the only people that from now on that I'm going to be keeping up with too. As of this day forward, I'm not going to try and attempt to contact anybody else, no matter how close I was with them, who doesn't respond back. I mean, and I've had, some of my closest friends literally have just left me on red without even responding. And again, I just think that that's such an extremely selfish thing to do. I mean, if you don't want to hear from me, just say so, and you won't. But anyway, and that's not going to happen any longer because I'm not chasing anybody's attention that doesn't give it back. And nobody else should. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you're chasing a relationship or a friendship. It doesn't matter. Nobody on this planet should ever have to beg for anybody else's attention. Okay? That's just common sense. It should be common sense. So, yeah, and as I was saying before, about how it can be harder to contact people because of jobs as well. Well, here's the thing. Some of you may know that I was lucky enough to become really close friends with Eva Longoria, who, in my opinion, is the greatest, most beautiful lady in the world, the most talented at what she does, and certainly one of the biggest celebrities in the entire world. And the thing that I always put into perspective is, despite how busy she is, I still hear from her just about every week and have done so since 2018. When she's got enough time, she will call me via WhatsApp, or she will she will send me a message almost every week on Instagram or WhatsApp, one of the two. And that's all I can ask from her or anybody else is, I just want to hear from you regularly. It doesn't even have to be a phone call, just as long as it's a text. That's more than enough for me, and I don't think that's asking too much. But yeah, God bless her soul. She's at least sent me messages when she hasn't been able to call, which has been amazing. And a lot of my other friends from the United States, they do the same thing too. When they can't get in contact with me, at least I'll hear from them via text or a message. But a lot of my Australian friends just won't do it. They just literally will not. They'll leave me on red, or they just won't bother responding at all. And I just think that that's extremely selfish. And the thing is that, I'm not saying that myself or everybody else here in Australia, I'm not saying we don't work hard, because we certainly do. We all work hard. But the thing that I don't understand is that how come Eva can still contact me regularly and these guys can't? And she's been in the spotlight for so many years now. And she works at least 10 times harder than what we do combined. And I don't think that's even a stretch. I think that that's truth. But yet, I still hear from her more, and despite the time zone difference as well, for that matter, I still hear from her more than what I do some of my Australian friends. And, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, but thankfully, because of her amazing friendship, I've been able to move on from the people that I was really close with that just don't want to have anything to do with me anymore. Sometimes I think I've even had enemies that have even been more kind to me than a couple of friends, because, at least with enemies, at least they'll tell you straight up, at least they'll tell you screw you. Whereas, you can have people that consider you a brother, that obviously say they consider you a brother, but then they just don't want to have anything to do with you the next day. It's crazy, But yeah, so the best way to move on from people like that is just to stick to those that actually will be there for you. That's the best way you can do it. You can go about it, and just go out and do things like continue to work, continue to play a sport if you play a sport, or any other hobby that you might be interested in. That's the best way to move on from people that don't want to have anything to do with you. The next thing I want to talk about is why I am apolitical, which means I have no political affiliation. Basically, it's because I feel like that my vote does not matter in today's society because of all the corrupt people and politicians involved in it. Where I think that taxation, for instance, is absolute theft. And the cost of living has certainly gotten out of hand as well lately. I mean, I've been living off of, for the most part, microwave brown rice and veggies just to be able to save money. Um, and I never used to really think about tax until I started to see how much I was getting taxed from my paycheck. um, and and also just seeing, you know, or hearing parts of the news of the way taxpayers' money was getting used. And that's another reason why I feel like taxation is theft, is because taxpayers' money just gets wasted on so many stupid things, and we've got absolutely no say in it, other than to vote, supposedly. But that doesn't seem to get us anywhere, because here in Australia, it's either Liberal or Labor. In America, um, it's either what is it, the right or the left. It's the Democrats and the Republicans, and they're the only two parties that anybody ever seems to vote for. But yet we always have problems, and that's why I think the whole government system is just a big scam. It's just, they only seem to look after the people that work for them. They literally don't seem to care about anybody else outside of people that they know that they can get something out of. Um, and I feel like that, for instance, I feel like celebrities with a lot of money that get involved with politics, I feel like they're the only ones that can actually make some sort of change, for the most part. But even then, I feel like that a lot of politicians use them too, because I mean, if they didn't have as much money as they did, I guarantee you that most politicians wouldn't even dream about doing anything involved with them. Um, and we live in a society where, and I'll touch on this a little bit later on, about equality, which I feel like does not exist, um, except for the attitudes of a very few people in between. But for the most part, yeah, equality does not exist, and we live in a society where the government definitely treats the rich better than the poor. I mean, we live in a society where the rich just get rich, and those that aren't, they just can't get any significant financial gain for the most part, because of things like the cost of living, and just how we have to deal with, with the wasting of taxpayers' money and things like that. It's ridiculous. Um, but yeah, what I do is, I mean, I live in a country, Australia, where I have to vote. Otherwise, I wouldn't vote. I'm just going to admit that straight away. I wouldn't be voting if I didn't have to vote. But it's mandatory. So what I do is I just vote randomly for a smaller party. And whoever's lucky enough to get my vote gets their vote. But it's not. But it doesn't matter, because it ends up all going towards one of the big parties anyway, Labor or Liberal. It's just the way it is. But um, yeah, and things will never significantly change as long as that happens. But I'll give some credit where credit is due. Back in 1996, John Howard was the prime minister for. He was a Liberal prime minister, and one of the things he did when we had a shooting massacre here in, where was it? I think it was um, in Tasmania, if my memory serves me correctly. But yeah, there was a shooting. There was a shooting massacre in 1996, and John Howard's response was to take away all the guns from people. Now, while I don't agree with taking away guns from responsible gun owners, I do very much respect the fact that he also took away the guns from those who aren't responsible, because there are a lot of idiots that should not be in possession of a gun, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, as I said, there's also, because I mean, I've got some close friends that are gun owners, and I feel like they deserve to, because they're properly mature, responsible people that aren't going to misuse their firearms. But there are a lot of people out there that are just too stupid to deserve to own one, in my opinion. But yeah, I respect the fact, even though I don't subscribe to any political party, I respect the fact that John Howard actually made some sort of change like that, because after he did what he did, there've hardly been any shootings since, and I respect that. But yeah, for the most part, most politicians, when they go to work, they don't do anything for anybody else other than themselves. Or other rich people that they know that they can get something out of. That's pretty much the way it is. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. You know, that there's so many. The thing is, there's nothing to stop all these politicians from breaking their promises, which further makes the whole government a whole scam, because there's literally nothing in place to stop politicians from lying. There's nothing to stop them from, breaking their promises that they make to us, that the things that they're gonna do, and that's just the way it is. We just have to accept it, and they're the ones with the power and money, and most of us aren't, except a few lucky ones in life who are able to get to that position. But yeah, the government is a scam, and that's why I will never have any political stance, because it's just gotten out of hand, and I just want absolutely nothing to do with it. So yeah, so that moves me into my next topic that I mentioned briefly a little bit earlier on, equality, why it should exist, but I feel it doesn't. Well, I mean, all you have to do is just look at things like racism that still exists. All you have to do is look at men that mistreat women, or women that mistreat men. That still happens, and it happens on both sides as well. It's not just men mistreating women; it's on both sides. And then all you have to do is just look at the fact that we live in a society that values people with money more than it does people without money. And again, that's not an opinion. That's just a fact. You look at a lot of rich people, and a lot of them are absolutely worshipped by so many other people, and it's because of what they have, not because of who they are. But I mean, not every rich person is like that, though. I mean, there are some rich people, and obviously who I know personally, that are amazing, and that they do a lot of great things with their money, and you wouldn't pick them as having a lot of money even because of how down to earth they are. But I mean, unfortunately, not everybody is like that. And the thing is that we also live in a society where people like me, for instance, who don't have a lot of money, wouldn't be able to get a dream girlfriend with someone who is insanely good looking, unless we have a lot of money, and that's just the way it is. Yeah, for whatever reason, and this isn't everybody. Again, like when I talk about things, I'm not saying it's absolutely everybody. I'm just saying it's a good majority. But there are a lot of attractive women out there who seek people with more money, and that's just the way it is. It's not every one of them, but yeah, it's just large part of society. Um, and there's also, yeah, so there's just certain people that won't be able to get with certain people just based on status. So that's why I don't think equality exists, because if equality did exist, then anybody would be able to date anybody based on their status, based on their race, and there wouldn't be any issue whatsoever. But there's always issues. There is always issues. Um, but at least thankfully, in my experience, as I said, um, Eva is she's the best friend I've ever had, and she is actually successful and rich, unlike myself. But she's always treated me as an equal, and I will always appreciate that. And God knows she's done so much more in her life than I ever will in mine, but yet she's always treated me as an equal, and I always appreciate that. And she's done so much for me in many different ways, that most people can only dream of as far as friendships are concerned. But I'm always thankful for that. So at least thankfully, yeah, even though we still live in a society that is, for the large part, not equal, at least sometimes some of us can be lucky to meet someone that will be able to treat us, equally, even though their status is far greater than ours. So anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is hard workers and lazy bums, just to put it quite blunt. Yeah. It's crazy to me in today's day and age how many people actually don't have a job. They don't have any career aspirations. They don't have any accomplishments, and yet they're insanely content with that. And I just think that is absolutely insane. I mean, all you have to do is just go down to a Centrelink. And for those of you listening from America, if you don't know what Centrelink is basically the Australian version of the unemployment line. Yeah, all you have to do is go down to a Centrelink and see all these disheveled people that show up, and just to get their fortnightly pay to be able to waste it on drugs and alcohol. But again, this isn't everybody. This is just a large majority. And and this goes back to what I was saying about taxpayers' money being wasted. Is that, yeah, the taxpayers' money is being wasted on these bums that don't want to get up and work. And another crazy thing is that some of these people, even with fortnightly pay, they're making almost as much as what I do for working 5 days a week in hospitality. It's insane. It really is. It's even more insane than these bad hands I'm getting in this game right now. But some of this stuff is really eye opening, and again, it's a reminder of sometimes why this earth is not always a nice place to live on, unfortunately. But it is what it is. I mean, I just, for the life of me, I mean, I even know a few people personally like this. I know a few people that don't have jobs, and they're just content to lay around and do nothing. For the life of me, I will never understand that, because, I mean, there's just so many things you're missing out on if you don't have money. And there's just so many things that you can't do. Holidays alone. I mean, it even makes it harder to afford just nicer groceries and things like that, and especially with the cost of living. And I just don't understand why anybody wouldn't want to have a job in today's day and age. But no, there are plenty of bums out there that just don't want to. It's insane to me. But anyway, yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about is, does money equal happiness? And in my opinion, the answer to that is a solid, firm yes. It does. Now, is money the only thing that equals happiness? No, of course not. But the thing is that if you actually sit down and actually think about the big picture, I mean, money solves so many problems. I mean, I know money also causes a lot of problems, especially for those that have too much of it and just do stupid things with it, and especially with the government and all, and and some people associated with the government. But yeah, money definitely does do a lot of things, and I mean, all you have to do is just look at things like when people get you gifts, that costs money. Um, being able to afford things around the house, that revolves around money. Um, and I just don't understand how anybody can say that money doesn't equal happiness, because it does. It absolutely does. And I mean, it's a shame that we live in a society that is so um, money driven all the time, and it's so based around money. But it is what it is, and that's just the way it is. And without money, you just can't live a good life, or you can't live a great life without money. I'm sure some people can live contently even without a lot of money, but there's just so many things you can't do without it, and in my opinion, it outweighs what you can do without money, more so. So yeah, I definitely feel that money equals happiness, and I don't think that there's anything that's going to change that. I mean, to me personally, I mean, my friendships mean more to me than money, for sure. Um, but there's just so many things that I need money for and I can't do. But thankfully, things are better now that I'm working, which is great. But yeah, um, that's just a fact of life. Um, so um, the next thing I want to talk about is why I no longer participate in debates with other people. So basically, it's because there's too much bias, personal feelings versus facts, especially with sports, I've noticed, and politics too. But I don't talk politics with people, so that hasn't really been as much of a problem for me, but it's really sports. And I'll give you an example. I'm a big tennis fan, and I play tennis and train in tennis as well. Um, and in my personal opinion, I feel like that statistically, Novak Djokovic is the greatest player of all time. Um, but I know people personally that still say it's Roger Federer, even though he doesn't have as many weeks as world number one. In fact, Djokovic's weeks at world number one is has eclipsed Federer by a full year now, and he has one more Grand Slam title than what Federer has. But I've had people that literally say, "Oh, that stats don't matter. It's also popularity, and that's why he's the greatest of all time." Okay, if that really is the case, then what's the point of even playing anymore? Then what's the point of chasing more stats if stats don't matter? I mean, stats are supposed to be the measuring stick on how great a person performs. Yeah, so it's just personal feelings getting in the way, and that's why I don't participate in debates anymore. I just think that you have your own opinion and keep it to yourself, and I'll do the same, because there's literally just no point anymore, because people aren't going to listen to reason. And I mean, I'll even give a small example on the political thing too. Now, in as I said, um, I don't have any political association whatsoever. I'm completely unaffiliated. I'm not right. I'm not left. But in my personal opinion, and I'm not a fan of the guy either. I think he's corrupt as any other politician is. But in my opinion, Donald Trump receives criticism for things that he had nothing to do with, just because he's such an unlikable guy. Um, and I used to before I got my license, and I used to sit on the bus. to travel to where I needed to go, I would sometimes hear people talking about him more than any other president. And they would just say some of the most ludicrous things that they had no idea what they were talking about. And yeah, and I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a nice guy or that he doesn't deserve criticism of some kind. But to me, being able to have a good discussion about anything is being able to give people credit where it's deserved. And Donald Trump has not done everything bad. In fact, I'll even go as far as to say not every politician, even all the corrupt ones, I'm sure they've all done good things in some way. Um, even amidst all their their selfish decisions and the corrupt way of running the country. Yeah, there are people that do good things and they deserve credit, and I've even got some relatives who I can't stand, but I know that if they've done something good, I'm not going to say that they haven't. They deserve credit where credit is due, and that's the thing, that there's so many people that just don't understand that concept. And for me personally, who prides themselves on on being unbiased and calling it like it is, it's hard to have conversations with people that aren't like that, and that's why I won't do it anymore. Um, so anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is the ups and downs of being a hospitality worker. So yeah, I've been involved in hospitality for just over 2 years now, and the main thing I like about it is the fact that I've been able to meet lots of nice people that I've formed some friendships with, even um, on the bistro floor, and with some co-workers alike as well. It's been great. Um, and I've been fortunate enough to not have to be around anybody that has really given me any real sort of grief. Um, there was one person that didn't like me at first, but now, um, now she's one of my closest friends there, which is great. And yeah, but it was nothing too personal anyway. It's just I think it's just sometimes some people just aren't made to get on with other people for whatever reason, just differences. But then when you sit down with someone and realize that, you know, you actually do have more in common than you thought, then that can change. So that's been really nice. Um, the downside of being a hospitality worker is mostly because of the fact that there's just so many messy people that just like littering all over the floor, and I just don't understand how they get away with it continuously. I mean, when I used to go out with my family to restaurants when I was a lot younger, we never did anything like that. We always cleaned up after ourselves, and we never dropped food on the floor. If we did, it was picked up instantly. But some of these people, just to put it, um, again, just to put it rather bluntly, they're just absolutely disgusting scrubs. They are. They really are. It's just amazing to me how much food they waste on the floor alone. But yeah, that's it's just mostly the waste that I don't like about working in hospitality. Um, I mean, and sometimes I feel like we all work so hard, um, but don't get paid as much as people in other industries as well. Um, Given all the hard work that we do for so many other people, but yeah, but I mean, still, it's been a great experience being involved in it, and it will certainly serve me well for the future when I decide to change career paths later on in life as well. Having all this experience of being in hospitality. Um, so another thing I want to talk about is terrible drivers and their habits. Um, there's, I mean, for one, all you have to do is just look at people that change lanes without indicating. That's one thing. Um, and then there's people that will enter the merging lane. Um, I mean, when I enter the merging lane, sorry, and I wait for somebody to go past, and they just stop in the middle of the road all of a sudden because they think I'm trying to come out. But the thing is that the merging lane, in my opinion, it's there. to wait to let people go that have right of way, and then I feel like everybody who's in the merging lane should just stop and then come out when there's no traffic. I mean, I think that's the whole point of it, right? But there's some people that just don't understand that, and they almost cause accidents because of what they're doing. Just stopping in the middle of traffic like that, and yeah, it's just not nice to be a part of when that happens. Um, so, um, well, and another thing too, and I know there's also a lot of other people that just drive so fast, for no reason other than the fact that I guess that they're late for their appointments. But it's up to you to um, plan your day better, because I mean, on my way to work, I feel like I'm in the middle of a Grand Prix. I really do. Um, and yeah, it's just and another thing that I hate about drivers is tailgating. I think if you tailgate someone, I think you're an absolute fool, and I don't think you should have your license. I mean, in fact, I feel like tailgating should have people lose their license, but it's not going to happen. But I feel like it should, because I mean, the thing is, I just don't understand why drive that close to someone anyway. You're not going to get to where you need to any faster than that. Than you're going already. It's just absolutely ridiculous to me that people continue to tailgate in this day and age. Because then if the person in front of you needs to slow down suddenly, you risk running into the back of them. But anyway, so yeah, and the last thing I want to talk about is just a few ups and downs of online slash social media. Well, the obvious positives about online and social media is that there's so many people, like my Eva, for instance, that I just never would have met if it wasn't for Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. There's so many people that I never would have met, and I'm thankful for that, because those friendships have helped me through so many, have helped me through so many times, and have just given me some of the best bonds that I can ever ask for. And another great thing about online is, especially with gaming, there's so many things involving with video games that are involved online, and there's so many other services that are involved online as well that make life easier. So yeah, the downsides of the downsides now, I'll say, is that there's just so many misinformation. There's so much misinformation out there. It's hard to tell what's right and what's wrong, especially with things like vaccines, which really get away with a lot of stuff. And in fact, you know what? I'll even add a little personal story about the vaccines, the COVID vaccines I'm talking about. I got double vaccinated with Pfizer. I had to do it in order to keep my job, which thankfully, they're not enforcing that anymore, which is fantastic. But when I got my second dose of Pfizer vaccine, I used to be able to train for 5 hours plus on the tennis court. And when I got that, for 6 months, I was only able to train for under 1 hour. It was crazy. And I was going to work, sluggish every day and just struggling to get along. And yeah, and that's why I feel like, getting vaccinated shouldn't be mandatory, because there's just so many people that have had problems with it that won't get reported, but it's happened. And yeah, there are so many people who've had problems with it, and I'm certainly one of them. But thankfully, at least I didn't have to go to hospital over it, but because I know people that have had to go to hospital because of how bad they were affected by vaccines, but yet we still get this, these bullshit articles come up online about how vaccines are safe. And it's just, people just don't want to listen to reason again, because I mean, if they were completely safe, then why are people going to hospital over it, and people have even collapsed over it. It's crazy to me how some people just overlook things like that. But yeah, it's troubling. It's troubling sometimes how much bullshit there is, and even with things like with things like dieting as well. It's and and what's the most effective method to train at the gym. You know, it's just it's hard to tell what's the best way, what's right, what's wrong, because there's so much misinformation on the internet. I mean, there's also a lot of truth on the internet as well, but there's so much bullshit. It's ridiculous, you know. So you can never believe everything you read on the internet, because there is so much misinformation out there, and there's so many sites with articles that claim that they're fact checked as well, claim that they're verified and this and that, and they're not. And the thing is that, you know, they're not. But people will claim to have the truth even if they don't. But yeah, I've had a fun time talking about a lot of things that piss me off while playing pretty poor in these games of hearts because I've had some shitty hands. This game might be over, I think. Oh, off by 3. That's how good it was. That's how good I was at maths. But anyway, thank you so much, guys and girls, for listening to this. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to leave this game now because I've got no chance of winning this. Really, really appreciate it. If you've got anything to add, feel free to add it in the comments. You know, I consider myself, for the most part, to be a big failure in life, but I'm doing what I can to turn around and be a success. And another thing I want to touch on before I go about you know, about friendships is that, you know, I'm proud about the fact that that I've never I mean, maybe I did when I was like really young in primary school, but as far as like having any proper meaningful relationships, you know, I never turned on anybody. You know, I stayed loyal with those who were loyal to me as well. And, you know, I never called anybody a brother that I had any intention on losing contact with, which I think is just, yeah, such a disgusting thing to do. And I feel like, yeah, if you're giving someone false hope like that, or, you know, making promises about going places with them or seeing them and things like that, and then you just don't do it, I think that that's just selfish. And it's just awful behavior. And, you know, if you don't want to have anything to do with anybody, just don't. Just don't. You know, it's better to not say anything than to make false promises and lead someone on with anything. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave now. So thank you so much, guys and girls, for listening to this rant. Really, really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or night, wherever you are. Take care, everybody.